All right. Good evening, good afternoon, everybody. It feels like nighttime because it's so dark. But thank you for everybody that has joined us for this live. I think that since we're recording this or we're doing this live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and I believe it's just going to stay up on all of those channels. So since this is essentially going to be recorded, to make most of our time, then we can kind of jump right into it. For those of you guys that don't know us, hello, I'm Saya.
I'm Emily.
And we are from Emigrate. We are an immigration tech startup in Sweden, in Gothenburg, and we post a lot about different immigration policies and changes in Sweden. And we do monthly webinars on different things ranging from what do you do when you've lost your job, work permit requirements. And today we're going to be talking about family reunification permits, specifically the partner permit with our cat. And today we have a very special guest. This is Hamid, who we have worked with for a very long time. And you may have seen Hamid before on a webinar that we did last year about preventative support within law. So about kind of seeking advice and how the fact that it's cheaper to talk to lawyers before you make decisions, rather than spending a lot of money trying to fix something that could have been prevented. So for everybody, if you have questions, you can put them in the comments. We won't necessarily answer them throughout because they might already be incorporated into the presentation. If they're fairly easy to answer, or if we think that that's a good point to bring up, then we will answer the questions at the end. If you have very specific questions about your case that require a lot of context, we do recommend booking a consultation instead, because those things typically take a bit more time to go through than during this webinar. So Hamid, would you like to introduce yourself to the group?
Yes, I'm Hamid. I live close to Gothenburg as well. And I'm an immigration and corporate lawyer in Sweden. And yeah, we're going to be talking about family reunification permits today.
Perfect. And one of the reasons that we're having this discussion is because, Hamid, you and I spoke a few weeks ago, and you said you were starting to get a lot of questions about this permit in particular.
Exactly. And this is an area that concerns many people, especially people seeing comments, posts online in Facebook groups, or maybe they're hearing stories from their close friends, families, how their case went bad and how they got a rejection and so on. And those people try to compare their circumstances with other people's, and then they become confused. And even sometimes, because I do get a lot of questions, and sometimes those questions are very basic questions, like basic requirement questions. But it's it's originating from misunderstandings, and also, like I said, when they try to compare their cases with someone else's, and they're trying to draw parallels, but it doesn't work like that because every case is unique. So yeah, sometimes they are very complicated questions, but sometimes they're very basic questions. But regardless, people get concerned, and they're trying to find answers, and we are here to give them answers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a valid point in terms of the partner permit is probably the one that has the most range in terms of no two cases are the same. The circumstances are always different, but because that application tends to take a long time as well, then your circumstances can change so dramatically from the time that you apply. So even if you are eligible at the time you apply, there may be issues with your application by the time you actually get to the case officer. Or I think we've seen a lot of cases as well where people don't qualify, but they apply anyways on the assumption that it's going to take a while, and then it doesn't take long enough, or they're told that, oh, but they had to fulfill the requirements at the start of the application when they made it, not just when the decision is made.
Yeah, or it's a quick rejection just because they don't qualify from the get-go.
Yeah, exactly. So we thought would be good then for us to kind of go into the partner permit, but specifically then Emily and I will talk a bit about the eligibility and the core requirements, including the maintenance and housing rules. And then Hamid, because you've done a lot of work with this permit in particular, we thought maybe you could talk a bit about the common reasons for delays or refusals, as well as practical steps to strengthen your case. So I guess from our end, in terms of the eligibility and core requirements to this permit type, one of the interesting things I think about this permit type in particular, and I think it's important to clarify that the permit type we're talking about is for non-EU partners of Swedish or permanent residence holding, or permanent residents in Sweden to move to them. So this permit type is not for spouses of EU citizens that are traveling with their right to residence, nor is this the permit type for dependents of temporary residence permit holders, like dependents of work permit holders and dependents of student permit holders. And I think the main differentiator between this permit type and maybe the other permit types is that this type is specifically for like if you're the spouse or the registered partner or cohabitating partner of your Swedish partner, but also you can also move with the intent to live together. Which I think is the main differentiator between the other permit types, because the other ones would require that you are registered as living together or that you are married. And this one has slightly more flexibility in terms of you want to move to your partner that you are married to or that you have lived with, but also somebody that you intend to live with in a permanent situation as well.
There is an age requirement too, isn't it? You have to be at least 20 years. Or is it 21?
Isn't it? Is it, Hamid, is it 20 or 21?
It's 21, and it's they are trying to prevent marriages, or they're trying to prevent applications connected to marriages where one of the parties got married like forcibly and so on. So they have that level.
Yeah. So you need to be, at least both parties need to be at least 21, and at least for the first time application. So obviously the person, the applicant, let's say the person moving to Sweden, needs to have a valid passport. And as a reminder, you can't be issued a permit for longer than the validity of your passport. So if your passport is expiring in a year, you're not going to get a 2-year permit. Especially for that first one. So it's important then that your passport is kind of valid for as long into the distance as possible. If you have something that's expiring soon, make sure that you renew that as well. And then you need to be in a valid relationship. And you're going to talk about your relationship and how you stay in touch in your application and in your interviews as well. And I believe there's some greater scrutiny put into, let's say, a relationship where you've only met once, or there's a very big age difference, or that there's discrepancies between the two people's stories, is that's going to be put under more scrutiny as well. But you need to be in a valid relationship. You need to intend to live together when you move to Sweden. And then on the sponsor side, so on kind of the Swedish partner side, there's requirements that they need to fulfill, because they need to show that they can essentially support you for the time that you're in Sweden.
Yes. Should I continue a bit on that?
Yeah.
So there's the maintenance and the housing requirements. Basically, the maintenance requirements is your sponsor's financials, because they will be able to showcase that they have the finances to have you come to Sweden, basically. And for partners, so like co-living partners, that's 10,219 crowns a month that you have to prove for. And that's this is the numbers for 2025. And I would say that they adjust them yearly. So it's also good. It's for the time of application, but it's good to know like when you apply and like the numbers that are in place then. And then it's additional, I think around 3,306 crowns for a young child, and then a bit more for like older children. So your partner can either showcase financials by showing that they have employment, So then they need to submit their employment contract and pay slips. But if they have the finances like available, like the whole, I suppose then they have to showcase it for 2 years, and that they have the money in their bank account, they can also choose to do it that way. I think there's also like if you get money from a-kassan or which is the unemployment fund, and Försäkringskassan, which is a social insurance public agency, that could also count as finances to showcase the maintenance requirements. And for the housing requirements, it isn't necessarily like the size or the area of your housing, apartment, or house that they sort of evaluated on, but it's rather like how many rooms you have. So for like 2 people, like partners, a studio apartment could suffice. But if you have a child, then you need to have an extra room. So for every and if you have 2 children, they can share a room. But if you have 3 children, then you need to have 2 rooms, essentially.
Yeah, I think there's requirements as well regarding like the person living in Sweden, for example, they can't be living with their parents. I think, and they also need to then they can't just rent a room in somebody else's house, for example, and the length of time that they have their contract also matters, because you need to show that you have housing for at least 1 year beyond when the decision is made. And that's something that can trip people up, because you don't know when the decision is going to be made.
Yeah.
If you don't have, let's say you only have a contract 12 months into the future, then you can submit that. But then it's good to kind of put in information regarding the fact that you're aware of that, you are planning to extend. And then the minute you extend, you should submit that documentation to Migrationsverket as well.
Yes.
But that one, especially for people on secondhand contracts, that can be quite difficult, because you don't have unlimited contract periods for those, but that's something to really stay on top of.
Yes, because they could reject your application if you haven't proven that you have a long-term contract or extended your current contract. So it's good to have that in mind.
Yeah. So those are kind of the most important things. Hamid, I have a question. This is a very niche situation, but I saw it on Facebook of somebody that has permanent residency, but they're still living in student housing.
That works. It works.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe I should just mention before I answer your question, all the things that we're talking about, like all circumstances, are going to be evaluated by the decision time, not the application time. And the other thing is like the amounts that we mentioned, like about 10,000 for couples and about 3,000 for a small child and so on. These are expensive. This is the income that the person living in Sweden has to have after paying their rent, or if they own the house or apartment they live in or they will be living in, then it's that amount they should have after paying their mortgages interest part, not the like monthly payment, but only the interest part. With regards to the student housing, it works, but in student housing, it depends on the contract as well. But in student housing, they allow you to stay in that apartment as long as you're a student at that higher education institute. So, for example, for a person holding permanent residency in Sweden, and let us say that they will be studying for 5 years. If they are at their 5th year, like last year, it means that they will graduate and they will lose that student housing contract when they graduate. Then migration agency doesn't accept that rent contract under maintenance requirement. But if we assume that that person is in their 1st year and they still have like 4 years ahead of them to finish their education, then it means that they are able to stay in that apartment for more, like for 4 years. Then that contract is valid for maintenance requirement. So it's not an issue of if it's a student apartment or not. It's an issue of contract, like how long can you legally stay in that apartment. The contract can say that it does not have any end date, because it's a student housing. You can like stay in that apartment as long as you want, contingent that you're a student. So as long as you're a student, then it's good to go. Then that's no problem. Sometimes when clients are like in their last years, we advise them to maybe apply for new education afterwards, so that we can show for migration agency that we have been accepted to a new program at the same institution, so that we can show that we will be living longer in that student apartment. And student apartments like work great because they're cheap, utilities in most cases included, and they are small, but they do have kitchen or kitchenette, and they have bathroom, which are one of the requirements as well. I mean, there are student housing arrangements in Sweden where you share your kitchen, or both your kitchen and bathroom, with other students. That doesn't work.
Okay.
For it to work, you have to have your kitchen or kitchenette in the apartment, and bathroom as well.
Okay. And with regards to then income, because they do say, or Migrationsverket does say that, they will count, if you're an employee, they'll count kind of your income from that. They count a-kassa, they count kind of like social security and those sort of things. Is there a higher chance of scrutiny or refusals if your income, even if it fulfills the maintenance requirement, is coming from, like, let's say entirely from a-kassa?
It has no bearing or no difference on the case. I mean,
Okay.
there is no difference. It's just important to know that, like, sometimes those amounts may not suffice to be able to fulfill the requirement of maintenance. But other than that, it's just a question of amount and how long you will be receiving that benefit, security, I don't know. Yeah, but it depends on the time frame.
Okay. So like, let's say if you submit your application and your benefits are supposed to end in a year and they make a decision 11 months from now, could they possibly then reject it on the premise of you only have a-kassa for another month and like you have used nothing else?
Exactly. It's important to know that like maintenance requirement is based for the future, not for the past. I mean, they don't care how long you have been receiving those benefits or that compensation. Doesn't matter. Like the only thing that matters is how long you will be receiving that amount. And these can be proved through contracts, through arrangements, through messages from, for example, a-kassa, unemployment fund, and so on. But yeah, it's important for the future perspective. And it's maybe this is not super relevant, but it's also worth to mention that, like Emily mentioned, it doesn't have to be an income, like monthly income. It can also be savings. If you have savings, this amount, like rent or your mortgages, interest part, plus if you're a couple, above like 10, 50, 10K, then you need to multiply this by 24. Then this is the amount that you should be having in your savings, assuming that you don't have a child. But it can also be, how do you say it in English? Like aktie.
Stocks. So it can be stocks as well.
Stocks, options, exactly. Those work as well. But they have to be, they should be able to realized immediately.
Yeah, that's
So
the thing,
that
right?
is
I
the
guess
important one.
stocks, like you have to show that they can become like you can make them liquefy them
Exactly.
within a very short period of time, because I guess some are more locked in.
Exactly. I mean, it's the same thing about like having a property. Having only a property. Let us say that you own a property. If you have sold it, you would just fulfill the maintenance requirement. Until you sell that property, it's not enough for you to fulfill the maintenance requirement. You have to make it liquid, realize it, how you want to say it. You need to have that cash at hand. Like it's same with the stock options. If you can't realize your stocks immediately, then it means that you don't have access to that saving to be able to fulfill the maintenance requirement.
I'm wondering also, in your experience, Hamid, because like the processing time is quite long, is it beneficial if you then send updated pay slips or like updated bank account statements to like the migration agency during the processing time, or will they like reach out to you specifically if they need that information?
They will reach out to you. We always advise clients to do that. Like if you every month when you get your payslip, when you get your rent invoice, just send them in. It doesn't directly help, but it's something happening in the case, so why not? But when a case officer is assigned to the case, then they will contact the applicant, or they will contact the lawyer if there is a power of attorney and so on, to renew the documents that had been sent before. And they usually do that, like I said, when a case officer is assigned to the case and just before or after the consular interview.
Okay.
In terms of that then, no, are you always called in for an interview no matter what?
This is not a legal requirement, but this is a legal playground that has been given to the migration agency. It doesn't mean that they have to, but they have the ability to call you for an interview. But I have seen cases where migration agencies said that we don't need an interview in this case and so on. So it's not a legal requirement, but they have the ability to call you to an interview. Both parties actually, just not the person who is moving to Sweden, but also the person living in Sweden. Both parties can be called to the interview.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you say then, if you had to pick like top, let's say 2 or 3 reasons that these applications have been refused from what you've seen? What would you say is like the most like common thing? Or if you want to look at it from a different angle, what was the most preventable reason that these are rejected?
Yeah, it's in most cases, it's either one of these reasons. Like the first reason that I'm seeing quite often is the maintenance requirement, of course, either related to the housing or to the income. And I've seen both sides. I've seen clients who shouldn't have applied, but applied anyway, just to see, they didn't know that they would get a rejection because they thought that they had a secure job and so on. And I have seen clients who didn't apply just because they were thinking that they wouldn't fulfill the maintenance requirement, but they actually did. They just didn't know how to organize it, how to present it to the migration agency. But that is the biggest reason, I would say. One of the biggest reasons. Not fulfilling the maintenance requirement, or maybe they have a job and it's a secure job. It's a permanent job. Let us say, and in Swedish we say it's fast anställning or tillsvidare anställning. Let us say that it's a fast permanent position, but the person is paid hourly. This is okay. This person can still fulfill the maintenance requirement, but maybe they are not entitled to work like 40 hours in a week. The employer only gives them like 10 hours, 20 hours in a week. And even though it's a permanent contract, job contract, which when you think about the contract type, fulfills the maintenance requirement, but the person doesn't earn enough to reach that level. So these combinations, but sometimes the person earns enough, but then the contract type is wrong. But they don't know about this, so they apply anyway, then they get the rejection. And when I'm involved at this stage in cases, I automatically talk to the employer, like my client's employer, and I ask if we can get a permanent contract. And most of the cases, they say, yeah, why not? I mean, yeah, it's not a problem. So something that could have been prevented easily in the beginning. These happen. And it's also same about housing requirement. They apply, they think that their contract is first-hand permanent contracts, when in reality it's a second-hand contract, and it has to be renewed like every 6 months, like every year, and so on. And migration agency interprets these contracts as like non-permanent, and that is that causes rejection, of course. So the like maintenance requirement is one of the like two biggest reasons for rejection. The other one is, this can be interpreted, it can be taken into perspective from different angles, but the information that the couples give to the migration agency, and there are different moments where couples give this information to the migration agency. When you apply, the person coming to Sweden initiates the application, and they answer some questions: how you met, how did you meet, and like things like how often do you see each other, and so on, like things like that. And the person living in Sweden completes this application with also corresponding information. So when the information sent in from the person moving to Sweden contradicts the information that has been collected from the person living in Sweden, then it's a big problem. Then migration agency interprets it like, okay, this couple, they don't know each other very well, because like they have given us contradicting information. So this is like a very easy thing that can be prevented, but unfortunately it happens quite a lot. The other moment that migration agency collects information about the relationship is the consular interviews, right? So you go to the interview when there's a case officer assigned to your case, and they require you to schedule, like the person moving to Sweden, they require this person to schedule an interview at the consular, like the nearest one. It doesn't have to be your home country. During the interview, the officer at the embassy or consulate, they ask some tough questions. Most of the time, these are questions originating from the application itself. Like, how did you meet? Where does your partner, spouse live in Sweden? Where does he or she work? Like things like that. So when you answer those questions and the information, like if your answers contradict the information that migration agency already has, then it's a big problem. Because like then they will say that, you have given us contradicting information. Sometimes they imply that you're lying. Sometimes they say that, you said this, but you weren't convincing enough. You didn't give us enough details about this question. So we think that this relationship is not mature enough for us to give you a residence permit to move to Sweden. So the information that you give to migration agency has to be, how do you say it? They have to write, like they have to be attached together. They have to come into pieces. So they cannot be contradictory. So that is the other biggest reason.
Can I ask, so are there couples that are not actually like discussing the case with each other before they submit their application?
They do, but sometimes, for example, let us say that a person they have a relationship, they're not married maybe, but they have been together for 2 years. And the person living outside of Sweden would like to move to Sweden. They apply for family reunification. But the person living in Sweden, he or she is not very good, like not in good terms with parents, with his or her parents. So the partner living outside of Sweden obviously doesn't meet the person living in Sweden partners, like the parents. So they don't, like he or she doesn't know their names, maybe where they live and so on, because like if my partner doesn't talk to his or her parents, why would I go and talk to them? Why would I know them? And at the embassy, when they ask about parents' names, and when I say that I don't know, because like I haven't met them, then migration agency interprets is, okay, you don't know your like partner well enough to know his or her parents' names. So things like that. So it doesn't have to be like the partners don't talk to each other. Maybe they don't talk to each other. They plan for this, but yeah.
So would you say, I mean, you and I, or you and us, we've discussed before about like the support that you give for people that are applying for this. And one of the things that you do then is you'll do a pre-session before the interview in order to kind of like help them get ready for their interviews.
Yeah. I mean, the interview is quite important, like as we have outlined. So to be prepared before the interview is a great asset, I would say. And not because maybe you already know which answers you're going to give to them, but once you have done something before, like a mock interview, then you're going to be less stressed at the actual interview. And it is also quite, I mean, it has helped me and my clients, in many cases, that to be well prepared, even for tough questions. Sometimes couples assume that they will get very easy questions because they have been together for 3 years, but it's not the reality in most cases. Sometimes they get tough questions. So to be prepared for these questions beforehand is very important, of course. And it's not just knowing the questions, but it's also important to know how you should answer your questions, what your answers should include, and your attitude as well. Because sometimes couples or the person going to the interview, they're like, yeah, I'm ready for everything you're going to throw at me, so ask away. And they ask away, then they just repeat rehearsed answers. It's not good either, because then it's like it looks like, or it sounds like, memorized answers, and the migration agency doesn't like those either. So what we do is we prepare the client before the interview. And when I say client, I mean both parties, because like I said, migration agency has also the ability to conduct interviews with the person living in Sweden. And those interviews are usually conducted over the phone. So there is no date, time scheduled. So they just call you and you're unprepared. You answer the phone, and by the time you realize what happened, they already had asked you like many questions, and you don't remember how you answered them. So we prepare clients, both parties, both of the couples, and we, after the interviews, we ask the transcript, the record of the interview from the migration agency, and it's in written form. It's a transcript. Then we go over what has been talked in the interview with the client. And this is important because maybe there was a translation mistake, and client has said something, the government, the consular official understood something else, or maybe the client got a question about dates and they answered, but it has been noted wrong. For example, they said September, but the person who's conducting the interview at the consular, they just wrote down October. So when we ask for the transcript, we go over the transcript with the client and discuss what has been said during the interview. Then if there are any mistakes, then we correct those mistakes. We prepare a document, we explain those mistakes and the reasons for it, and we complete them. And this is quite preventive as well, because realizing there is a mistake and taking this up, explaining the reason and correcting it before migration agency asks you, builds up the trustability as well.
That makes sense. In terms of, so we have a question here. I don't really know if I fully understand it. When you're asked to send an updated statement after 6 months of a 1-year application, do you submit 6 months kassa, maybe all kassa, or do you still need to show 1-year maintenance? I'm assuming they're asking, do you need to
provide this,
show maintenance 6 months into the future, or do you need to show 1 year? I mean, at that point, the decision still hasn't been decided yet. I'm assuming this has to do with the request to conclude that the question is about, but maybe if whoever wrote it could clarify a little bit, because I'm not 100% sure. I understand. But if you're sending a request to conclude after 6 months, you'd still need to show that you would be able to have kind of fulfill your maintenance requirements, at least from the housing perspective, for at least 1 year beyond the decision date. And I suppose after 6 months, if you're no longer fulfilling the maintenance requirements from an income perspective, that can be problematic as well. So I guess people's circumstances do change, and they may have fulfilled it at the time of application. But if you don't fulfill it like 6 months in, then I'm assuming then that can be a problem. That can be a cause for rejection as well. But what would you say then, Hamid, most important things for each side to prepare before applying? One thing that we've noticed, because we've done some applications, is that the Migrationsverket platform doesn't like apostrophes or quotation marks in any of the information when you're answering questions about like how you met and stuff like that. I think we've always noticed that it says that it's not it's
invalid.
It's an invalid symbol is what we've seen.
Yeah, migration agency, like this platform, these electronic applications, and to be honest, I don't usually use them because there are restrictions like this, like symbol restrictions, or maybe there is a document that you would like to send apart from something else. Then you are confined in these limits, like the limits that the digital system allows you to do. But if there is anything that is crucial to the application, and you still want to do the electronic application online, do the application, then complete the application with that piece of information that you would like to add to the case. But yeah, they're always correcting, developing their systems and to the best of their ability, but these happen all the time.
Would you suggest actually that this is one of the permit types that it's actually better to apply by paper than online?
I would probably say that, and it's because of two reasons. Because and when you send the application by letter, like physical post, make sure that it can be tracked. It's a trackable post or rekommenderat brev, so that you know and you can prove that that your documents have reached the migration agency. And there's also a question about originality of documents. Like if migration agency would like to have those documents in hand to check and validate and send those documents back to you, then even if you, for example, let us assume that you apply online and you send your documents, like copy scannings of your documents, but migration agency will eventually ask for them and to control to check the validity. So yeah, why not send them by paper and ask them back?
Yeah, but would it then, because like technically then the first applicant, or do you send all documents as one submission with the paper application? So then
I do.
So then, for example, the partner in Sweden could then sell the full application.
That's true. Exactly. So we send like both parts, both parties like papers in the same post. So migration has everything. And since I have power of attorney from the couple, like both of them, it's not a hindrance. But for example, let us assume that like a person moving to Sweden doesn't give any power of attorney to his or her partner. And that partner submits every paper, like everything in the case at the same post. Then migration agency can contact and ask for power of attorney.
I guess that's the important thing, is that even if your spouses, for example, because we've seen this as dependents of work permit holders, for example, is that every single adult needs to assign power of attorney. So you can't just assume that like, oh, but I'm applying on behalf of like my spouse. If the spouse hasn't issued the power of attorney to somebody, then like you can't submit things on their behalf. So I think that's like important for people to know as well, because I don't know if it's different in other countries, but like all adults. Okay, the person said, I mean, do you need to show maintenance from the date you applied for the application or just into the future if you're asked to present an updated bank statement? I mean, ideally, you should be fulfilling the maintenance requirements at the time of application. I think in general, Migrationsverket will mostly look at like if you fulfill the maintenance requirements at the time of decision. But I have heard about cases where maybe you so egregiously did not fulfill the maintenance requirements at the point of application that they might say, I know that there's other permit types where they're like, oh, but you should have fulfilled the requirements when you actually like made the application.
Yeah. Or I suppose then the risk is that they look at your application before you've had the chance to submit further documents that you now fulfill the maintenance or housing requirements, and they just make a quick rejection because they can very quickly see, oh, but you don't fulfill the requirements. So then we reject you without pulling you in for an interview or anything.
Yeah. I think a lot of people count on the fact that it like can take 12 to 24 months sort of thing for this permit type. So they're like, well, I don't fulfill it now, but I know that in a few months' time I will. But then you do have a lot of then cases of people like Migrationsverket looking at the case then earlier than expected, and they don't fulfill the requirements. Therefore, they're rejected. So I would probably, personally on my end, I don't know about you, Hama, I would probably advise like if you don't fulfill the requirements at the time of application in terms of like the maintenance and the housing, would you suggest it's like better not to start the application until they do? Or be like, oh, but I know that I'm going to start my new job in 3 months. So I'm going to apply now because in 3 months' time, I will be making the right income.
If the person has job contract, like at hand, signed, like everything has been done properly, the person has rent contract and job contract, but the rent, also maybe the job, is starting 3 months from now. But I have the contracts at hand. Then the application still can be sent in. But migration agency, of course, relies on the documentation. If you say that you will have a job, but you don't have a contract right now, they won't listen to it.
Okay, so if you're like in the interview stage and you're like, oh, I have a good feeling about this one, it's better not to submit the application because like nothing's in hand.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I guess the main things is just double check to make sure that this is the specific permit type that you're eligible for, because there are like multiple different like dependents or spousal permits that all kind of have for different connections. So I think it's important to check that. Make sure you fulfill the maintenance requirements, but I think importantly, like talk to a professional before you actually start, just in case, because there are certain things that they can flag early. Because I think the number one thing that a lot of people don't catch is the part about the housing, not necessarily just the fact that like it should be like first or second hand, but also the length of time for the contract, because so many people are on secondhand contracts. That I feel like that's one that people don't think about, because they think about it in terms of like, oh, I need a contract for a year into the future, not I need a contract for a year from the time of the decision as well. And surprisingly for this one, then I guess one of the things is like paper application, maybe the superior application type, which is not always the case, but it does make sense, I guess. Oh, also, if you have paperwork that I guess isn't in Swedish or English, you need to actually get proper translations of things, but also submit the original documentation with the translations as well.
Exactly.
Does that cover it?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
Well, so kind of what we've done then for people that are interested in pursuing this or have questions about it, we have created a page at emigrate.io about the partner reunification permit, specifically for non-EU partners of Swedish citizens or permanent residents who wish to live together in Sweden. This has been kind of broken down into how it works, and we do have kind of a checklist option, an expert review option, or full support provided by Hamid as well. That will go into, especially I think the important one when it comes to full support, if you're not fully sure about your case, or you think that it's a high risk one, it is definitely good to speak with an expert or an immigration lawyer ahead of time. And I think an incredibly valid part that Hamid brings to this specific process is the interview preparation. because it sounds like that's something that gets a lot of people as well. So if you guys are interested, you can buy the full checklist. You can go for full support. And for that one, then it can start with, if you leave your contact details, then Hamid can do like a 10, 15-minute call to also assess your case based on difficulty as well. If there's other permit types that you guys are interested in, if you go to emigrate.io, we have different processes where we go into then the permit type, what kind of group it is, the different information about it. You can do quick eligibility checks, check out how it works, as well as do your different options of buying a checklist. That's both interactive updates over a year. So if there's any changes, then you can refresh it and update it. You can also do consultations for 30 minutes, or you can also get expert support as well. So if you're interested, please go check that out. Our latest process, like we said, is the partner reunification permit, which we have now put up, mostly for Sweden, but we are also now coming out with the digital nomad visa process for Spain as well. So thank you so much, Hamid, for joining today. I think that was a lot of really interesting information, and I hope that if anybody has any other questions, just make sure to put them in the comments and we'll try to answer it. Make sure to visit us at emigrate.io, or also follow Hamid on LinkedIn, or check out his website, Notitia Law. Is it notitialaw.com?
.se.com, both works.
Okay. So you can check that out as well, because he does not only kind of corporate support in terms of, I guess, setting up businesses in Sweden and the different kind of corporate and labor requirements, but also immigration support as well. So thank you, everybody, for being here, and we will catch you in the next webinar in January 2026. Happy holidays.